Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Leadership Void podcast. I'm Enrique with my co host Vince to bring you the best in our veteran, military spouse, and first responder community. And Vince will introduce today's guest.
Hey, thanks, Enrique. We have Brian Fay. He is the strategic director with Concerned Veterans for America, folks, all the way from Orlando, Florida, right down the street. Brian, welcome to the show. Let's start off. Tell us a little bit about you.
Thanks. First of all, thanks for having me, guys. Pleasure to be here. As you heard, my name is Brian Fay. I am the Strategic Director for Concerned Veterans for America. I served in the U.S. Army for 7 years, from 2007 to 2014. Had the pleasure of going to Iraq and Afghanistan during those times. And unfortunately, after Afghanistan, my career kind of went down and in because of some medical issues. And I had to get medically retired, but I got out. Got very involved in my community, got involved in local politics and working with people, political leaders and community leaders in the area of Orlando. And that ultimately led me to where I'm at today.
Well, thank you for your service and a big hooah to you and all of our Army brothers and sisters around the world. Now, you mentioned your service time, and now you're serving on this capacity on this side of the civilian sector. So tell us a little bit more about Concerned Veterans for America and your role there.
So Concerned Veterans for America is a advocacy group that works to make veterans a voice of freedom and prosperity for America. And what that looks like is veterans have a unique voice when weighing in on the subjects that are concerning not just veterans, but Americans today. We have that perspective because of the things that we've experienced, the events that we've been through, the things that we've seen. And we're able to take that perspective and elevate that voice so that we can actually see some change happen. We believe that veterans are not a problem in need of a solution, but we can be the solution to America's problems. So we work on key legislation that not only gives veterans better access to health care, foreign policy, where we meet with congressional and Senate members and we talk about that there's so many steps that can happen before we get involved in endless wars, and we can talk about realism and restraint with those. We talk about economic prosperity and energy independence and the budget with all of those.
Hey, you know what? We really need Concerned Veterans for America here today, and then we're glad that you're doing this heavy lift. So, what do you continuously do to support your community, or Concerned Veterans for America does as well to support the community?
So I'm actually blessed in this role because as a strategic director, I'm essentially the state director for Florida. We've got staff in Jacksonville, Tampa, and Miami, and we're also in 11 other states. But in Florida, what I do for the community and in not just Orlando, but all around, is we have a foundation that I'm able to, like with Florida Association of Veteran-Owned Businesses, I'm able to partner with, or Camaraderie Foundation, and help them work towards mutual benefit of for both of our organizations. So for example, with Camaraderie Foundation, we highlight the fact that the VA could do better. The VA has definitely got some missing aspects of how they're providing service to our veterans, which is why organizations like Camaraderie Foundation exist to provide mental health care outside of the VA, right? So because of that, we go and work with our foundation, with organizations like Camaraderie Foundation, and help ensure that veterans are getting the care that they need, even if it's not able to be done at the VA. So I partner with organizations. I work with community leaders, and again, as I said, I help educate them on the issues that veterans are facing, and I help elevate that veteran voice so that veterans feel like they have a seat at the table and talking about the issues that not only that they're facing, but Americans are facing.
And partnership is so important on this side of service, as well as between different organizations helping veterans. So thank you for your work there. Now, speaking about what you're doing now, what's on the horizon for Concerned Veterans for America?
Well, we've got big things happening, actually. Right now, I don't know if you guys use the VA. I do. It is my primary source of healthcare. But the Mission Act, which we helped get passed in 2018, is probably under the biggest threat that it's been in since then. A lot of current House Veteran Affairs members think that this bill that's called the Dole Act, that's being push forward is going to be a good thing because it gives, on the surface level, more money to the VA. Unfortunately, it guts sorry about that. It guts mental health care programs and makes it where veterans are actually going to have a harder time accessing community care options outside the VA. So we're working to protect the Mission Act and ensure that the VA fully implements the Mission Act. And we're also working on getting veterans better access to healthcare outside the VA by what's called the Veterans Healthcare Freedom Act with Senator Blackburn. We think that in 2025 that we're actually going to see that pass, and that's going to create a pilot program which essentially allows the the veteran to go get seen outside the VA without waiting for the VA to refer them, which is like a huge step in the right direction.
No, I commend you on that because both of us use the VA. I just came from the VA this morning, so I understand.
How'd that go?
Well, luckily it went well, one out of 10. But you speak of all the great thing and partnership. This is Mental Health Awareness Month, right? So it's
Absolutely.
definitely a need. This Mission Act is definitely important in everything you're doing. So I commend you all for that. Now let's switch gears, Brian, and talk a little bit about leadership. What do you constantly do to sharpen your skill sets that aid you to thrive in your professional life?
So first and foremost, I read. I am constantly trying to learn. I don't know if you guys have read Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink, and I probably am butchering his last name. But that is a book that I really dove into. I believe that as leaders that we have to own every decision that we make, and we have to own it extremely. And that book just really dives into that from a Navy SEAL perspective. I aside from just reading, I constantly seek the advice and counsel of those around me, those with more experience. I'm reaching out to other people in the community like Baron Mills and Trish and people that have experienced things and have gone through probably stuff that I'm experiencing, and I get that advice. And then I'm always striving for more optimization, and that's not just in my personal professional life, but that's also in my personal life. And I'll give an example. The 5 a.m. club is essentially uh, developing habits where you wake up every morning and you have how you maximize the first hour of your day, whether it be meditation, journaling, working out. That first hour of the day is so important. And they say it's 5 a.m. because they talk about successful millionaires and entrepreneurs always wake up very early and they start their day at an early time. But it's really about how you spend the hour of your day. So I focus on optimization and trying to figure out how I can be the most productive person that I can be.
And that is great to have a habit of learning through reading. And we had a lot of guests share similar experiences. And talking about experiences, not only with leaders, but you yourself, what advice did you receive that maybe you would like to pass on to an emerging leader today?
I think the biggest advice, and this might sound harsh, is surround yourself with winners, right? You are your network. The people that you surround yourself with are a powerful representation of who you are as a person. And you absolutely need to surround yourself with people that echo the passion and the desire to be better and better your community that you're trying to exemplify. Um, and then the next thing I'd say, and I was just talking to Glenn Glazane about this last night, because I don't know if you know Glenn, he just got appointed to the supervisor of elections of Orange County. Great guy. But he exemplifies this perfectly. He thought for his swearing in ceremony that he was going to have 40 people show up, right? And I think there was like 150 at that little tiny Orange County supervisor elections office on KLE, to the point of where they were quadruple parking cars and people were getting blocked in. And that's because he understands what so many great leaders understand. That is that relationships are the real currency of life. That you need to um, invest in the people around you so that you get that same return. And then lastly, I would say develop habits that win and eliminate the ones that lose.
The one that loses, right? Correct. I was writing down basically relationship is the real currency of life. I was like, oh man, that's phenomenal. Thank you for sharing that. And building the tribe, building the relationships is like building a team like we have in the military. I'd love to hear from you, Brian, a memorable leadership aha moment that you had. I'd like to share with our audience as well.
Okay. So you brought up like relationships in the military and how, so I was a corporal in the Army, and I was in charge of a ER shift. I led people in Afghanistan at the TMC. I had a lot of leadership experience in the Army, but when I got out, I realized that very quickly when I rejoined the corporate world, because I had started my own small businesses before I joined CVA and had been my own boss. But when I jumped into CVA, I realized that you don't want blind followers, right? You don't want someone that just does like what they are told to do in the military. So I had this aha moment, and I'm going to share it because in Edris, the guy that I'm going to be talking about, who's on my team, and he's our Miami guy. He's probably going to laugh and want to kill me at the same time, but we were at an all staff, and our executive director had invited our Florida team to a nice dinner, and it was definitely like polo required kind of restaurant. And Edris, Mr. Miami, was already in his night like Miami Heat tracksuit, ready to like hit the bar and just hang out because the training was done for the day. And I was like, hey man, if you want to go upstairs and like throw on a jacket so that we can go to dinner. And he's like, no, I'm good. I just think I want to stay here. And I was like, I couldn't understand why he wouldn't want to go to dinner with our executive director, right? And I immediately switched to that military mindset of like, listen, you just need to do what I say, instead of trying to understand where he was coming from and his perspective. So there was this aha moment, as you call it, this light bulb clicked. And it wasn't until the next day when I actually went to apologize to him for how I approached him with my brash military leadership style, was that we are better when we have two ways of communication. When I listen more than I talk to the people that are under me. If I set an expectation, I should get feedback on what that expectation looks like for them and how they can manage that expectation. I shouldn't just set the expectation and expect them to blindly be able to follow and engage with that. And once that clicked for me, I realized I was able to separate that leadership style that I was so used to from the military to a leadership style that was much more effective in the corporate world.
And we learn even when we get out, we definitely understand that there are certain environments where certain leadership styles work. It cannot be, just a blank check across the board, because you'll find those times of challenge come. And talk about times of challenge. What are certain strategies that you use with yourself or your team when those times of change and challenge come?
So I don't know if you know much about principle-based management, or PBM as we call it, but we apply a decision framework for everything that we do within our culture at CVA. And there's five dimensions, which is it's vision, virtue and talents, knowledge, comparative advantage, and motivation, right? But probably I would say, and I'm sure there's people that are far better at PBM than I am in my organization. Vision is the most important, and I'll tell you why. We talk about a North Star. So whenever we're experiencing a challenge, whether it be what direction to take one of our communities, whether it's a piece of legislation that we're looking to support or go against, we have to first ask, does this align with our North Star? Does this align with our vision? Is this keeping the team heading in the same direction? Because as I said, we're in 11 states, so we're all working towards the same vision, though, even though we're all in these different states, but working towards those very differently and with different strategies. So we always take that approach and focus on vision. And then probably another important one is applying the knowledge dimension to that. It's like, am I getting the best knowledge that I can possibly get around this challenge that I'm having? Have I sought out the counsel of those that might have already experienced this? Have I dove into resources that are available to me that are going to help me overcome this challenge? I think when we look at both of those dimensions in the PBM framework and we apply it specifically to every decision that we're going to make, you get the best result possible.
No, absolutely. Having that vision, surround yourself with winners and have that reflection to reframe, is really important. So, Brian, thank you so much for everything you're doing. And Concerned Veterans for America. So how do people get a hold of you or CVA?
So the easiest way is to go to cv4a.org. There's a volunteer if you're wanting to get involved. If you're watching this in another state outside of Florida, like I said, we're in 11 other states, just to name a few: North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Ohio on the East Coast, and we've got some other ones out on the West Coast. If you're looking involved, you hit volunteer, and that's going to connect you with a local chapter in your area. There's also ways to get involved right on that website. If you want to take digital action on one of our petitions that we're trying, if you want to help the Mission Act, as I was talking out at the beginning of this podcast about how the Mission Act is at risk, there's ways to take action on that and send letters to your senator, to your congressman, letting them know that you want to support the Mission Act and that you want them to ensure that veterans are having better access. Those are two of the quickest ways that you can contact us or get involved.
Well, outstanding. Well, folks, we will have all of those links on the video and show notes for you to get a hold of Brian or CVA. And Brian, thank you for being with us. Folks, if you want to get a hold of us at the Leadership Void Podcast, the Leadership Void at gmail.com is where you'll send that correspondence. If you'd like to see a guest or a leadership topic covered, you'll do it by those means.
Yes, and today is all about Concerned Veterans for America, and we thank our sponsors, Triple Nickel, FAVOB, and A Hero for Kids. But Brian, thank you for being on the show. Much success in your future.
Thank you so much, guys, for having me.